I used to think betrayal was loud. A slammed door. A raised voice. A text left on the counter. I was wrong. Betrayal is quiet. It is a signature on a form you did not read. It is a bank transfer you did not authorize. It is a doctor consent you never signed. I learned this the hard way. And I learned it in a room that smelled like antiseptic and lies. We had been married 8 years. 2 years of dating, 8 years of sharing a mortgage, a minivan, a grocery list, and a daughter named Maeve. She was 5 when it happened. 5 years old with a gap between her front teeth and a habit of collecting smooth stones from the driveway. I loved that little girl more than I knew how to say. I loved my wife too. Or at least, I loved the version of her I thought I knew. The one who packed lunches. The one who remembered anniversaries. The one who smiled at parent-teacher meetings and held my hand during flu seasons. I did not see the version that kept a second phone in her glove compartment. I did not see the version that met with a man named Julian 3 times a week under the guise of insurance paperwork. I did not see the version that opened a medical line of credit in my name and routed it to a shell clinic in a neighboring state. I saw the surface. I trusted the surface. That was my mistake. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday in March. I woke up with a dull ache in my right side. Not sharp, not alarming, just present, like a bruise I could not remember getting. I asked my wife about it. She said I must have pulled a muscle moving boxes in the garage. She handed me 2 ibuprofen, kissed my forehead, told me to rest. I believed her. I went back to sleep. The next morning, the ache was worse. My vision blurred slightly when I stood up. I felt cold, not shivering, just deep, internal cold. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from a number I did not recognize. 2 voicemails, both silent. I called my primary care office. They said I had not been scheduled for an appointment. I checked my insurance portal. Found a claim filed 48 hours prior. Procedure code 0709. Nephrectomy evaluation. Pre-operative clearance. Signed. Dated. Not by me. By her. I stared at the screen. Felt the blood drain from my face. Not because of the claim. Because of the signature. It looked like mine. But the loops were wrong. The slant was off. It was a forgery. A good one. But still a forgery. I did not confront her. Not yet. I printed the document. Filed it. Checked my bank statements. Found a transfer to an account under a corporate name. Clear Horizons Medical Logistics. I ran the name through a state business registry. It was registered to a Julian Voss. Same name as the man I had seen her having coffee with twice. The man who wore a wedding ring on a chain around his neck. The man who never looked at me when they passed in the driveway. I connected the dots. Not with panic. With precision. I was not sick. I was being prepared. I was not injured. I was being harvested. I did not sleep that night. I watched my wife pack a suitcase. Not for a trip. For a departure. She folded clothes I had never seen her wear. Placed them in a hard-shell case. Locked it. Set it by the door. I lay in bed. Eyes closed. Breathing steady. Listening to the hum of the house. The refrigerator. The furnace. The quiet rhythm of a life I thought was mine. I waited for her to leave. She did not. She went asleep. The next morning, she made coffee. Packed Maeve lunch. Kissed her on the cheek. Dropped her at preschool. Came back. Sat at the kitchen table. Slid a folder across to me. Inside were 2 documents. A medical consent form. A limited power of attorney. Both signed. Both dated. Both forged. She said it was for my own good. Said I had been ignoring my health. Said Julian was a specialist. Said the procedure would clear my debts. Said the money would secure Maeve's future. I asked what procedure. She said a donation. I asked to whom. She said a private buyer. I asked if I agreed. She said I would, once I understood the numbers. I looked at her. Really looked. And I saw it. The detachment. The calculation. The quiet certainty that I was an asset, not a husband. I stood up. Walked to the door. Turned the deadbolt. Told her to leave. She did not cry. She did not argue. She just nodded. Picked up her keys. Walked out. The door clicked. I locked it behind her. I did not call the police. Not yet. I called my brother. Told him to pick up Maeve. Told him not to let her come home. Told him to stay at his place until I said otherwise. He asked why. I said trust me. He did. I spent the next 6 hours tearing the house apart. Not for answers. For evidence. I found the second phone. Hidden in a vent behind the bathroom mirror. Unlocked. Messages to Julian. Payment schedules. Clinic coordinates. Transport routes. A list of my medications. A list of my blood type. A list of my allergies. A blueprint. I photographed everything, printed everything, backed it up to 3 separate drives. I did not feel rage. I felt focus. Focus is the only antidote to panic. I drove to the clinic listed in the messages. It was a converted warehouse on the edge of town. No signage, no reception, just a heavy steel door and a security camera. I knocked. No answer. I called the number on the lease. Disconnected. I filed a police report. Not for missing persons. For attempted organ trafficking. For forgery. For fraud. For endangerment. The detective on duty was tired. Skeptical. Asked for proof. I handed him the folder. He read it. His posture changed. He called his supervisor. Within 2 hours, I had a case number. Within 4, I had a detective assigned. Within 6, I had a forensic accountant on the line. I did not go home. I went to a motel. Paid cash. Used a burner. Told no one except my lawyer. I needed silence. I needed structure. I needed to survive. I thought about Maeve. 5 years old. Asking for her mother. Wondering why daddy was not at preschool pickup. I did not know how to explain it to her. I did not know how to explain it to myself. But I knew one thing. I would not let them take what was left. I would not let them erase us. I would document. I would report. I would protect. And I would wait. Because waiting is not surrender. It is strategy. And strategy wins. The detective assigned to my case was a woman named Reyes. Mid-40s. Sharp eyes. No nonsense. She did not offer sympathy. She offered process. I respected that. Sympathy fades. Process endures. She walked me through the next steps. File a restraining order. Freeze joint accounts. Secure Maeve legal custody. Document every interaction. Preserve every piece of evidence. Do not engage. Do not negotiate. Do not hope. Hope is not a strategy. I followed her instructions. Not because I trusted the system. Because I trusted the structure. Structure does not let you down. People do. I filed the restraining order that afternoon. Cited forgery. Cited attempted organ trafficking. Cited endangerment of a minor. The judge granted it within the hour. Emergency basis. No notice required. I froze the joint accounts. Redirected direct deposits. Changed passwords. Revoked shared access. I secured Maeve temporary custody through an emergency motion. Cited abandonment. Cited fraud. Cited imminent risk. The judge granted it. Same day. Same urgency. I documented everything. Every call. Every text. Every email. Every bank transaction. Every medical claim. I built a paper trail so thick it could not be walked over. I did not feel vindicated. I felt prepared. Preparedness is the only antidote to chaos. Chaos thrives in ambiguity. Preparedness eliminates it. I learned that the hard way. I stayed at the motel for 3 nights. Ate vending machine snacks. Drank bad coffee. Watched the news on mute. I did not sleep much. When I did, I dreamed of Maeve asking for her mother. Of my wife smiling while signing my name. Of Julian handing me a glass of water that tasted like metal. I woke up each time with my heart racing. Not from fear. From clarity. Clarity is a form of adrenaline. It keeps you moving when your body wants to stop. I kept moving. I met with a forensic accountant on day 4. A man named Chun. Quiet. Methodical. He traced the money. Followed the shell companies. Uncovered the routing. Found the pattern. My wife had not just tried to sell my kidney. She had built a pipeline. 3 other victims. All men. All married. All with dependent children. All with forged consents. All with missing organs. Chun did not say it out loud. He did not have to. The spreadsheet said it for him. I looked at the numbers. Felt the weight of them. Not just my life. Theirs. Not just my daughter. Theirs. This was not a personal betrayal. It was a franchise. And franchises require distribution. I authorized Chun to share his findings with the state attorney general. Not for revenge. For compliance. Fraud is not a crime of passion. It is a crime of repetition. And repetition leaves a paper trail. The AG's office opened a preliminary review. Quiet. Thorough. Unannounced. I stepped back. Let the system work. I focused on what I could control. Maeve. My health. My safety. My peace. I picked up Maeve from my brother's house on day 5. She ran to me. Hugged my leg. Asked where mommy was. I knelt down. Looked her in the eyes. Told her mommy was sick. That she needed to go away to get better. That daddy was here. That daddy was not going anywhere. She believed me. Not because I was convincing. Because she was 5. And 5-year-olds trust the people who hold them. I held her. Tight. Not to protect her from the truth. To protect her from the timing. Truth requires readiness. She was not ready. I was. I started therapy that week. Not because I was broken, because I was rebuilding. My therapist was a man named Evans. Calm. Direct. He did not ask how I felt. He asked what I needed. I told him. Safety. Clarity. Boundaries. He helped me build them. Not as walls. As protocols. Protocols do not require emotion. They require execution. I executed. Every day. In every decision. In every boundary. In every quiet moment where I chose Maeve over chaos. I learned that parenting after betrayal is not about explaining the world. It is about shielding it. Shielding does not require lies. It requires timing. I timed it. Carefully. Consistently. Without guilt. Guilt is a luxury I could not afford. I could not afford to wonder if I was hurting Maeve by not telling her everything. I could not afford to doubt my choices. I could not afford to second-guess the boundaries I had drawn. I drew them for a reason. To protect. To preserve. To prevent. Prevention is the highest form of love. And love, I learned, does not require sacrifice. It requires structure. I restructured my life. Not around the betrayal. Around the truth. The truth that I was targeted. The truth that my wife was not just unfaithful. She was criminal. The truth that Maeve deserved a father who was present. Not just physically. Emotionally. Legally. Financially. I became that father. Not perfectly. But consistently. Consistency is the only currency that does not depreciate. I spent it wisely. I received a call from Detective Reyes on day 10. They had located my wife. And Julian. In a motel 2 states over. Paid in cash. Registered under a fake name. But the credit card trail led back to clear horizons. The shell clinic. The forged consents. The missing organs. They had enough for an arrest warrant. They executed it at dawn. No drama. No chase. Just a knock. A badge. A pair of handcuffs. I did not watch the body cam footage. I did not need to. Justice does not require spectacle. It requires documentation. And I had documented everything. I received a formal notice from the DA's office the next week. Charges filed. Attempted organ trafficking. Forgery. Fraud. Endangerment. Conspiracy. The list was long. The evidence was solid. The case was strong. I did not feel relief. I felt recognition. Recognition that the system, when fed the right data, works. Not perfectly. Not quickly. But it works. And work is enough. I did not attend the arraignment. I did not need to see her in cuffs. I did not need to hear the charges read aloud. I knew what she did. I knew what she tried to do. I knew what she cost me. That was enough. I focused on Maeve. On her routine. On her smiles. On her smooth stones. I took her to the park. To the library. To the ice cream shop. I let her be 5. I let her be happy. I let her be innocent. Innocence is a gift. And gifts require protection. I protected it. Not with fear. With presence. Presence is the quietest form of love. And love, when built on truth, does not break. It endures. I received a letter from one of the other victims. A man named Daniel. He had found my story through the AG's office. Reached out. Not for advice. For acknowledgement. He told me his story. Similar. Different. Same pain. Same betrayal. Same fight. We did not become friends. We became witnesses. Witnesses do not need to like each other. They just need to tell the truth. We told it. To each other. To the investigators. To the court. To ourselves. Truth, when shared, loses its power to isolate. It becomes a bridge. Not to reconciliation. To clarity. And clarity is the foundation of healing. I did not heal quickly. I did not heal linearly. I healed in increments. In small victories. In quiet mornings. In Maeve laughter. In the absence of fear. Fear is loud. Peace is quiet. I learned to listen for the quiet. And when I heard it, I knew I was moving forward. Not away from the past. Toward myself. That is the difference. Moving toward yourself is not abandonment. It is alignment. And alignment is the only foundation that lasts. The legal process moved slower than the arrest. Arrests are events. Trials are excavations. You dig through years of deception, piece together forged documents, trace shell companies, interview experts, and prepare for a courtroom that does not care about your trauma. It only cares about evidence. I provided it. Detective Reyes coordinated with federal agents. The organ trafficking network spanned 3 states. Julian was not just a lover. He was a broker. My wife was not just unfaithful. She was an accomplice. They had lured men through dating sites, targeted those with financial stress or dependence, forged medical consents, scheduled pre-operative procedures, and planned to extract kidneys for private buyers overseas. The scheme relied on isolation, urgency, and forged authority. It relied on trust. I broke the chain by refusing to play along. The preliminary hearing was held in late spring. I attended, not for closure, for record. I sat in the back row, wore a dark suit, brought a notebook, listened to the prosecutor read the charges, watched my wife sit at the defense table. She looked smaller, not physically, spiritually. The performance had ended. The reality had set in. Julian sat beside her, handcuffed, eyes forward. No connection between them. No whispered words. Just two people who had built a house on fraud and watched it collapse under its own weight. The judge set bail, denied it for both, cited flight risk, cited severity of charges, cited ongoing federal investigation. They were remanded to county jail. No contact, no privileges, just concrete and steel. I did not feel triumphant. I felt exhausted. Exhaustion is the price of survival, and I had paid it in full. I returned to my routine, dropped Maeve at preschool, went to work, reviewed contracts, attended therapy, walked 6 miles, slept, repeated. Routine is not boring. It is protective. It builds a rhythm that trauma cannot disrupt. I learned that healing is not an event. It is a practice, and practice requires consistency. I was consistent. I did not check the news for updates. I did not monitor jail visitation logs. I did not wonder what they were saying. I focused on what was in front of me. Payroll, invoices, Maeve drawings, therapy notes, bank statements. All of it documented. All of it controlled. I stopped asking why. Why started with curiosity and ended with obsession. I replaced why with what. What happened? What I did. What I will do next. What kept me grounded. I hired a child psychologist for Maeve. Not because she was broken, because she was adapting. Children do not process betrayal through words. They process it through behavior, through sleep patterns, through appetite, through play. The psychologist taught me how to read the signs, how to respond, how to maintain stability without forcing conversation. I followed the guidance, not rigidly, attentively. I learned that parenting after trauma is not about fixing. It is about holding space, holding boundaries, holding the line between protection and overcompensation. I held it. I did not buy her extra toys. I did not let her skip rules. I did not make excuses for absence. I gave her presence. Predictable, reliable, unshakable. That is what children need. Not perfection. Consistency. I built it. The trial was scheduled for early autumn, 6 months after the arrest. I prepared with my attorney, reviewed exhibits, practiced testimony, anticipated cross-examination, did not rehearse emotion, rehearsed facts. Facts do not crack under pressure. Emotion does. I kept mine separate. The prosecution offered a plea deal. Julian would take 20 years. My wife would take 15. Both with mandatory minimums. Both with asset forfeiture. Both with permanent registry placement. I was consulted as a victim impact statement author. Not to negotiate. To acknowledge. I declined to participate in the plea negotiation. My role was not to decide their fate. My role was to document the harm. I wrote the statement. Not for the judge. For the record. For Maeve. For the other victims. For the version of me that survived. I detailed the forgery. The fear. The abandonment. The financial ruin. The emotional toll. I did not exaggerate. I did not minimize. I stated it. Plainly. Truthfully. Without apology. I submitted it. Filed it. Moved on. The plea was accepted. They did not go to trial. They folded. Not because of pressure. Because of math. The evidence was overwhelming. The federal overlay was unavoidable. The network was dismantled. The brokers were identified. The buyers were tracked. The money was seized. The operation was over. I received the sentencing notice in October. 15 years. 20 years. No parole eligibility for 8. Asset forfeiture complete. Restitution ordered. Case closed. I read the document. Placed it in a folder. Archived it. Did not celebrate. Did not mourn. Just acknowledged. Acknowledgement is not forgiveness. It is recognition. Recognition that the threat is neutralized. That the boundary held. That the system, when properly fed, functions. I did not need to watch them walk into a cell. I needed to know they would not walk out. They would not. Not for a long time. I focused on Maeve. On her 6th birthday. on her first day of first grade, on her growing vocabulary, on her questions about why some families have two parents and some have one. I told her the truth, adjusted for age, not detailed, not dramatized, just clear. Some people make choices that hurt others. Some people break rules. Some people go away to learn how to make better choices. Daddy is here. Daddy is not going anywhere. You are safe. You are loved. You are enough. She nodded, believed it, not because the words were perfect, because the tone was steady. Steadiness is the language children understand best. I spoke it fluently. I rebuilt my finances. Not quickly, carefully. I worked with a financial advisor, restructured debt, closed joint accounts, established a trust for Maeve, funded a college savings plan, purchased term life insurance, built an emergency reserve. I did not do it out of fear. I did it out of responsibility. Responsibility is the opposite of chaos. Chaos thrives in neglect. Responsibility thrives in planning. I planned. I executed. I maintained. I started volunteering at a victim advocacy center, not to relive my trauma, to support others navigating it. I listened. I shared resources. I pointed them toward legal aid, toward therapy, toward financial counseling. I did not offer solutions. I offered direction. Direction does not require fixing. It requires mapping. I mapped it, carefully, honestly, without judgment. The other victims formed a quiet network, not a support group, a resource exchange. We shared contact information for forensic accountants, for trauma therapists, for legal advocates, for financial planners who understood the unique fallout of financial and medical fraud. We did not meet in person. We communicated through encrypted channels. We did not bond over pain. We aligned over purpose. Purpose is the quiet engine of recovery. I found mine, not in revenge, in prevention. Prevention does not look back. It looks forward, and forward is where Maeve lives. She turned 7 in March, drew a picture of our house, with 2 figures, one tall, one small, holding hands, under a yellow sun. She handed it to me, said, "This is us." I framed it, not for display, for reference. Reference points matter. They remind you of where you started and where you are going. I am going forward, not fast, not slow, steady. Steady wins, not in headlines, in longevity. Longevity is not measured in years. It is measured in cycles. Each cycle brings refinement. Each refinement brings stability. Each stability brings clarity. I have clarity. I will not lose it. I will not compromise it. I will not trade it for convenience. Convenience is temporary. Clarity is permanent. I chose permanent. I will keep it, not as a weapon, as a standard. Standards do not negotiate. They hold. I hold. I will continue to hold, not out of pride, out of practice. Practice is the quiet engine of mastery. Mastery does not seek recognition. It seeks continuation. I continue. I will continue to continue, not until I am tired, until the architecture is complete. And completion is not an end. It is a state of function. Function is the highest form of freedom. Freedom does not require absence of responsibility. It requires presence of structure. I have structure. I have freedom. I have peace. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind. The kind that does not announce itself. The kind that simply exists. And existence, when built correctly, does not require defense. It requires maintenance. I maintain. I will continue to maintain. Not for them. For me. For the work. For the truth. For the blueprint. The blueprint is clear. Build what matters. Protect what is yours. Let go of what isn't. And never, ever apologize for choosing yourself. That is the lesson. That is the line. That is the legacy. I will keep building. Quietly. Honestly. For me. For her. The years after the sentencing did not bring a dramatic transformation. They brought something quieter. They brought routine. And routine, when built on truth, does not feel like a cage. It feels like a foundation. I stopped checking the docket. I stopped monitoring jail correspondence logs. I stopped wondering if they would appeal, if they would write, if they would try to reach out through intermediaries. The restraining order was permanent. The court mandated no contact. I enforced it, not out of bitterness, out of clarity. Clarity does not require enforcement through emotion. It requires enforcement through boundaries. And boundaries, once drawn, do not need justification. They just need maintenance. I maintain mine. I focused on Maeve, on her 7th birthday, on her 8th, on her first soccer game, on her lost teeth. on her growing questions about the world. She did not ask about her mother often. When she did, I answered with the same calibrated truth. Some people make choices that separate them from their families. Those choices have consequences. My job is to keep you safe, to love you, to show up. Every day, she accepted it. Not because the answer was easy, because it was consistent. Consistency is the only language children truly trust. I spoke it fluently. I rebuilt my life around that consistency. I stopped overworking. I stopped measuring my worth by productivity. I started measuring it by presence. Presence at school drop-offs. Presence at bedtime stories. Presence at therapy appointments. Presence at quiet Sunday mornings with coffee and crosswords. I did not chase success. I cultivated stability. Stability is not flashy. It is functional. And functionality is the quiet engine of longevity. I sold the old house. Not because it held bad memories. Because it held bad architecture. The layout was wrong. The rooms were too large for 2 people. The foundation showed cracks I chose to ignore for years. I bought a smaller place. 3 bedrooms. 1 for Maeve. 1 for guests. 1 for my study. A fenced yard. A quiet street. A neighborhood with sidewalks and streetlights and neighbors who wave. I planted a tree in the front yard. A maple. Slow growing. Strong rooted. It will outlive me. I like that. I like building things that do not require me to survive them. I learned that legacy is not about what you leave behind. It is about what you build so others can stand on it. I built for Maeve. Not with money. With structure. With boundaries. With truth. Truth does not shield children from pain. It prepares them for it. I prepared her, not by dramatizing the past, by modeling resilience in the present. Resilience is not toughness. It is adaptability. It is knowing when to hold on and when to let go. I held on to what mattered. I let go of what didn't. I let go of the need for an apology. I let go of the expectation of closure. I let go of the fantasy that love should be unconditional when it was clearly transactional. I accepted reality. Reality is heavy, but it is honest. And honesty is the only ground that does not shift under your feet. I started dating again at 34. Not casually. Carefully. I vetted. I observed. I listened. I did not rush. I did not ignore red flags. I did not confuse attention with intention. I learned that trust is not given. It is earned. And earning takes time. I gave it time. I met someone. A teacher. Quiet. Grounded. Clear boundaries. She did not ask for my past. She asked for my present. I gave it to her. Not all at once. In increments. We built something slow. Something steady. Something that did not require me to shrink or perform or surrender. It required me to be honest. I was. She was too. We did not merge finances immediately. We did not sign anything. We just shared time. Shared space. Shared respect. Respect is the baseline of everything that lasts. I learned that the hard way. I do not know if it will last forever. I do not need to know. Forever is a measurement, not a guarantee. I focus on now. Now is enough. Now is safe. Now is honest. That is all I require. Maeve turned 9 in May. She wrote a letter for school. About someone who changed her life. She wrote about me. Not about my success. Not about my work. About my consistency. About how I never missed a school play. How I always answered her questions. How I told her the truth even when it was hard. How I stayed. She handed it to me after dinner. I read it. Put it in the same folder as the trial documents. The forensic reports. The sentencing notice. The medical claims. The forged signatures. All of it archived. Not as trauma. As evidence. Evidence of survival. Evidence of choice. Evidence of a life rebuilt on truth instead of illusion. I do not hate them. I do not wish them harm. I do not think about them at all. Indifference is not cruelty. It is resolution. Resolution means the story no longer dictates my present. I write my present now. I write it with routines, with boundaries, with presence, with quiet mornings and steady evenings and predictable weekends. I write it with a daughter who knows she is safe, with a life that does not require performance, with a mind that no longer scans for threats because the architecture is sound. Sound design does not need guards. It needs maintenance. I maintain. I will continue to maintain. Not out of fear, out of respect. Respect for the work. Respect for the truth. Respect for the version of me that sat in a motel room, staring at a forged medical consent, and decided that survival was not optional. It was mandatory. I kept that promise. I will keep keeping it. Until the work is done. until the foundation is solid, until the house I built inside myself can withstand any storm. And when the storms come, as they always do, I will not flinch. I will not negotiate. I will not open the door to the people who handed me to the rain. I will close it. I will lock it. I will turn on the light. And I will sit in the quiet. Because the quiet is where I learn to breathe. And breathing is the first act of living. I am living. Fully. Clearly. Unapologetically. And I will not stop.